So, when you think crypto, where does your mind go? Silicon Valley, right? Maybe Wall Street. Well, I'm here to tell you to think again. Because the real center of gravity for this whole revolution, it's shifted. It's now firmly in the Asia-Pacific. And we're about to dive into exactly how this region, with this incredible mix of, pure need on one side and massive ambition on the other, has basically become the engine for the future of money.
Yeah, it's a story of just explosive growth, these wild, mind-bending contrasts, and a future that's literally being written as we speak.
And if you want a sense of the sheer scale we're talking about, just look at this number. $2.36 trillion. That's how much money moved through crypto in this one region, in a single year. I mean, this isn't some small uptick, right? This is a fundamental surge. It's telling us that the very tectonic plates of the global economy, they're shifting under our feet.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at why this is the new center of gravity. Then we'll dig into that fascinating clash between need versus ambition. We'll have to navigate the regulatory labyrinth for sure, and then we'll take a peek into the future, what 2026 might look like, and finally, we'll get real about the risks, because they are definitely on the table.
All right, let's jump right in. The big question from the get-go is, what's so special about the Asia-Pacific? I mean, why here? Why has it suddenly become the beating heart of crypto's global growth?
Well, you can really boil it down to one powerful idea. It's become a true global crucible.
And what that means is, there's just no other place on the planet where you have these two completely opposite realities clashing and coexisting. I mean, on one hand, you've got people in emerging economies who are adopting crypto out of pure, raw necessity. It's a tool for survival. And then, on the other hand, you have this massive flood of institutional money pouring in from these super developed financial hubs. That tension, that explosive mix, that's the secret sauce right there.
And believe me, when we talk about adoption, we're not talking about some fringe group of tech enthusiasts. The data is staggering. 1 in 4 adults with internet access in the region already owns crypto. Let that sink in. 1 in 4. So yeah, this has blown way past being a niche tech thing. This is a full-blown cultural and economic phenomenon, and it's changing the rules for millions and millions of people.
And this brings us right to the core of this whole story. This incredible duality, right? Need versus ambition. You have these two completely different crypto worlds that define the region, and they're colliding, they're coexisting, and together, they explain this insane growth.
So on one side, you have crypto as a purely functional tool. For some, it's literally a financial lifesaver. It's how you send money back home to your family or how you protect your savings from runaway inflation. But in the other corner, you have the speculative use. We're talking pure trading, high-stakes investment, and that whole wild universe of decentralized finance, or DeFi, which is all about building a new financial system without the old-school banks. And this, right here, is the key to everything. It basically turns the entire Asia-Pacific region into this giant, real-time laboratory for the future of money. I mean, the million-dollar question, maybe the trillion-dollar question is, can crypto actually be both? Can it be a tool for the unbanked and a sophisticated asset for big-time investors? This is the only place in the world where we're seeing that experiment play out in real time. And hey, if you had any doubt about where the energy is coming from, just look at the countries leading the charge in adoption. India, Pakistan, Vietnam. That's not a coincidence. This is definitive proof that the strongest, most powerful growth is coming from the bottom up. It's coming from real people using this tech to solve real, everyday problems.
So, you've got this scene that is just buzzing with activity, right? It's incredible. But of course, all this energy is slamming up against one of its biggest challenges, regulation. Or maybe more accurately, the absolute chaos that comes from a total lack of consistent rules.
Trying to figure out crypto laws in the Asia-Pacific, it's like trying to walk through a labyrinth in the dark. Every single country has its own set of rules, and to make it worse, they can change them overnight. So while some places are rolling out the red carpet for investment, others are basically building a wall. The result? It's an environment of total, maddening uncertainty.
I mean, just look at the contrast. You've got India, which, despite all the regulatory fog, is a world leader in on-chain activity. And then, at the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have places like Singapore and Hong Kong. There, things are getting much more formal, more structured. The big banks are jumping in. This creates this vibe of legitimacy that just completely clashes with the more, let's call it, guerrilla-style growth you see everywhere else.
All right, so with that entire picture on the table, the question is pretty obvious. Where does this all go from here? What's next?
let's try to look into our crystal ball a little bit and see what trends are going to shape this market between now and, say, 2026.
Okay, looking ahead to 2026, a few things seem pretty clear. First, the growth is just going to continue, both at the grassroots level and with the big institutions. But the real stars of the show will likely be stablecoins. The cryptocurrencies that are pegged to something stable like the US dollar. They are just perfect for payments and for sending money, which, by the way, is going to force governments to finally create some clearer rules. But as all this happens, a huge paradox starts to emerge. This technology that was born to be inclusive could actually end up creating an even bigger digital divide.
And that brings us to our final section. And it's an important one, a dose of realism. Because yes, there is so much optimism, so much potential, but there are also some very, very serious dangers that could not only stop this growth dead in its tracks, but could do real, lasting harm, especially to the most vulnerable people. So these are the big ones we're watching. First, insane price volatility that can just wipe out a person's life savings in an instant. The regulatory chaos we talked about, it's a legal minefield. The risk of a widening digital divide, which could shut out the very people who need this stuff the most. Then there's the explosion of scams. And finally, a really dangerous dependence on just a handful of giant exchanges. And that last point is crucial. You have to understand, if just one of those giant exchanges goes down, the whole house of cards comes tumbling down with it. The systemic risk here is absolutely massive.
But it gets even darker. We can't just gloss over this. There are very serious, credible reports that directly link parts of the crypto world to criminal networks and industrial-scale scam operations, especially in Southeast Asia. And this isn't just a game of numbers anymore. It is a clear and present warning that running alongside all this innovation are dangers that can, and do, literally destroy lives.
And so, here we are at the end, left with this one massive question just hanging in the air. It is absolutely clear that the Asia-Pacific region is leading the crypto revolution. But the great unknown, the thing nobody can answer yet, is whether it will manage to build a future that actually has room for everyone. Can it navigate these enormous risks? Can it close the gap between incredible opportunity and devastating inequality? The answer to that question isn't just going to define the future of the region. It will very likely define the future of crypto for the entire world.